Welcome to Dollars and Cents, Creating Your Fulfilled Life with Nicole Ramito from Private Vista. In this podcast, we draw from years of experience as well as guest specialists to help you create the life you imagine. Join us in this journey as we enlighten and empower you to align your lifestyle to help you achieve your goals with a clear picture of your future. Now, let's get to the show.
And welcome back to the Dollars and Cents podcast with your host, Nicole Ramito. Nicole, it is so good to see you. How are you?
I am just living the dream, Bill. How are you?
That is awesome. I love it when people are living the dream.
Right?
So, I occasionally skip into the dream and then I wake up and I think, well, wait a minute, I'm going to go back to sleep.
Oh,
So what's on the table today? What are we talking about?
Yeah, Bill, I'm very excited to be back in studio, and returning as my guest is Joyce Marter. So Joyce, welcome back. So glad you're going to be here to have another episode with us.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, if you didn't catch the first episode Joyce was on, that is episode number 87. And we discussed how to have an open and honest talk with your kids about the cost of college and, what is the reasonable way for that to be able to be funded. What we're going to talk about on this episode is your kid has graduated, yay, or they've, completed their trade school, or they're, that they're not going to do secondary schooling. Whatever it is they are really looking towards that next chapter of trying to start or enter their adult life. And so before we get started, I do want to just give a brief bio on Joyce. As I mentioned, Joyce Marter is our guest today. She is a licensed psychotherapist, keynote speaker, and internationally published author specializing in the psychology of success, mental health, and financial mindset. She's the author of The Financial Mindset Fix and a contributor to Forbes, where she writes about the intersection of mental health, leadership, and money. Often referred to as America's workplace therapist, Joyce helps people cultivate healthier relationships with money, work, and success so they can thrive. And I think, Joyce, that's why that you are the perfect person to be having this conversation to help guide our listeners on this, important topic and common topic. Just to share a couple of stats so our listeners know they're not in this alone if they happen to find themselves in this situation. We look out in today's world, over 50% of 18 to 24-year-olds live with their parents, and about 20% of 25 to 30-year-olds live with their parents. We see, I know with talking with friends and clients, just kind of anyone out there, it's getting harder and harder to kind of go it on your own. Rents are at all-time high. It's very difficult for many people who are coming out of college to get a job. So, Joyce, what I want us to talk about is how can people instill, how do you go about instilling financial responsibility and, having the conversation, and then maybe we can talk about some tips or strategies we both seen other people use.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to share that I'm also a mom of 4 young adults, ages 21 to 30. So I have been through this personally, as well as have guided many clients, whether it's therapy clients or coaching clients, and supported friends through this process. And it's really a balance of providing our kids with financial roots and stability and support, because you're absolutely right. If you're in this situation, you're not alone. We're dealing with economic uncertainty. The market is extremely competitive right now for young adults to secure employment. And so many kids are still living at home. And it's important for us also to foster and support their separation and individuation, to really support them in growing their financial wings. And so there's emotional, psychological, and logistical approaches that we can use to really support them. And I think number one, it starts with having honest conversations about money. So speaking with our kids with respect and transparency and removing any shame or stigma around money conversations and just really facilitating a compassionate space to talk honestly about the parents' financial situation, what this means for them, having the child living at home for a period of time, because the research also shows that when we support our young adult kids in this way, it also impacts our ability to save and invest for our future and retirements. And we also want to provide support for them, whether that's career counseling or getting them back into therapy so that they have support, because I really believe it takes a village to raise a child. And then helping them understand their money situation. So, understanding that there are expectations in terms of them contributing to rent or household bills or whatever it might be for your unique situation, and supporting them in obtaining some sort of work while they're maybe looking for their dream job or dream situation. And having a conversation about them staying at home is maybe not a forever plan, but having some timeline. There's also research, Nicole, I'm sure you've seen this, that some parents are actually purposely taking this approach with their young adult kids who are working so that the kids live at home for the first couple of years outside of college or trade school, as you mentioned, or in their profession as a young adult, just to save the money to be able to buy their first home or start their adult life without debt.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that where even if the child has their first real professional job or their career job, that, yeah, I can think of at least probably 10 different friends and clients, even my life partner, just to have them be able to save money so that they could either, save up the 2 months of rent you need to put down, or just even have like an emergency fund available for the inevitable bumps in the road. So I definitely have seen that. A couple of things too. I'm think you had mentioned like, a timeline, right? I think that's very important to have that conversation on the front end, because it is, I find, more difficult to either backtrack or it's been 6 months or a year. And now if you're like, hey, you need to be out by January 1, it doesn't, it maybe feels like mom and dad are changing the rules on me, and this is very sudden in what's happening. So I would think too, like maybe within the timeline, I know some parents have gotten very formal and they actually have like a written contract. Which there's pros and cons to every approach, but talking about here's either what bills the parents will pay or what they'll contribute and for how long, what is the child expected to do, if anything, in return? Is it maybe you need to apply for X jobs a week or a month, or you need to be meeting with what's the word I'm thinking of, the recruiter, or things like that, right? So it's measurable metrics where the kid isn't paying money, but they're doing their part to hopefully then move them towards being able to move out and be on their own. Do you have any thoughts or pros and cons on kind of a more set contract or formal timeline, or exchange, if you will?
I think there are so many nuances for different families and different partnerships and situations. For example, there are cultural variables. One of my good friends she's Puerto Rican, and in
Okay.
her culture, it's very traditional and very normal and typical for young adults to stay at home until they marry. And so for her, there is no timeline or
That's a
plan.
great point.
And right. And so I love that you mentioned your partner. And I think it's really important for each individual parent to look at their own financial situation, their own emotional health situation, and their household situation, and honor their own unique variables. For example, if you're having marital stress, having a child living at home can really exacerbate that relationship stress. Or if you're really in a hard financial situation yourself, actually having your kid live at home may have some benefits. They can share with household chores, maybe contribute to some of the bills. So it's
Right.
really a unique situation for each person. So I think it's important for people to start with themselves and get their own financial house in order, maybe consult with their own advisor or
Right.
planner and understand the financial implications of the delayed launching of their kids. And then talk with their partner if they have a partner, or be honest with themselves about their bandwidth for supporting their kids, and practicing both self compassion and also empathy and compassion for the kid, and showing that you care about how they're feeling about the situation. I think it's also really important for people to be mindful of what I call financial codependency. And codependency is a term you might be familiar with in terms of people in a relationship with someone with a drug or alcohol problem. But really, codependency can happen in any relationship, and it's detrimental caretaking. It's when one person assumes too much responsibility for the other person and sort of enables them from growing and developing. And so, if a parent provides too much support and comfort, they're not really enabling their young adult child to grow and move on. And so sometimes there are psychological components. Sometimes, if a person is a single parent, they're maybe unconsciously using their child as a surrogate partner.
Yeah.
And that's not emotionally healthy for either of them, not to mention financially, maybe not the most ideal situation. So,
Agreed.
having a counselor or a therapist to kind of look at these situations, I think is always helpful. I personally, as a therapist, have been in therapy multiple times in my life. And as a parent, I think it's so helpful to have support from another expert on your own unique situation.
Can I jump in really quick?
Please.
Okay. I do agree as well from the financial perspective is it is really important for the parents to understand, you don't want to do something to help your child now and then it's negatively impacting your own situation and now all of a sudden for the parent, 20, maybe 30 years down the road, you don't have enough money to be financially independent. And I don't think anyone willingly would want to become a burden to their kids. So I
Yeah.
do agree you want to talk to, I too am a big proponent of therapy and mental health professionals, but I think also it's understanding with your financial advice. I mean, it's one thing if you're like, I'll pay your $100 a month cell phone bill, right? That's one thing.
Right.
But if you're like, letting them live for rent free and paying for everything for them, most likely that is going to have some type of impact on most people. So I do think it's important to just understand what does that mean to me. And I think, kind of following along with your codependency comments is this gives you almost like the financial advisor, if you will, could maybe be the bad cop. And you could just say, well, when we met with Nicole, our advisor, and here's what we're able to contribute because we don't want to be a burden for you down the road. And hey, daughter or son, you've got 40 to 50 years of your life where you're going to be able to earn and save and plan for your future. I don't have that. So that's why let's kind of have the conversation about what could this look like, what's feasible for us. And then, to the point of, again, like how long are we talking? How long is an allowable or sustainable is the word I'm looking for, amount that we can support you?
Absolutely. And you brought up the notion of having a contract. And I have a dear friend that recently went through this, where she
Okay.
and her partner worked with their son on having a contract because he ended up dropping out of college and was living at home. And there were some problems occurring in the household. And so they
Sure.
set some household rules and expectations for him, as well as employment rules. Either he needed to be taking X number of classes or working X number of hours, and then what he needed to contribute. And they agreed on a timeline. They also agreed on him moving out of the home into his own apartment that they would help subsidize because it was causing relationship stress
Yeah.
really for all of them.
Yeah.
And so that has moved forward. They actually signed off on that. And they also have former partners who are, two other parents who are also involved in their son's life. And so they had, conversations with them as well about these expectations. I think having a contract like that is really useful for those more serious situations. I think if it's something where you have a kid that is trying their best, they're working hard, they want to be independent, they're just down on their luck and it hasn't
Right.
happened yet. I don't think a contract is necessary in that type of situation. But I think promoting their financial literacy and promoting their empowerment for them to make the changes. And I would also caution you're about X number of interviews or, meeting with the career coach or the recruiter.
Mhm.
Those are great things to put in a contract if you're at that point, or they're certainly good things to recommend. But I wouldn't want the parent to end up in kind of a manager or supervisory role with their young adult where they're micromanaging and saying, have you done this, done that, done this? It's kind of like, have you cleaned your room and brushed your teeth? We're done with that developmental phase of parenting, hopefully at this stage of life. And it doesn't feel good to the kid or to us. So we really want to hand that baton of responsibility to them and have a conversation that we believe they are capable of managing their responsibilities in this endeavor.
So
And then having those timelines.
what are your thoughts though if they're not, right? I mean, I'm a big proponent of accountability. So I
Yes.
hear what you're saying, and I'm not the mental health professional, but I think there has to be accountability. So I agree you don't want to be micromanaging because you need to empower the child. Otherwise, they're never going to grow up and become self-sufficient. So I fully agree with your sentiment there. But I guess my guess is then my question is, how do you do accountability while still trying to move them along the path of becoming empowered?
Yes, and again, it's balancing the roots and wings, so giving support and accountability and then giving them freedom, and I do think it takes a village. So whether it is going to a place like in Chicago, there's Career Transition Center, or
Mhm.
many universities have a
Yeah.
job center that students can utilize, community mental health and social services agencies like Jewish Vocational Services. I used that when I was graduating from graduate school, and I'm not Jewish. Everyone is welcome to go there. And so using those services really provides a team of accountability. And so having some expectations and boundaries around that, writing them down, maybe having a weekly check in for 30 minutes, or maybe it's a every other week family meeting. Again, I do think having a counselor is also helpful for accountability. Our kids, tend to listen to others more than
Yep.
they listen to ourselves.
Really great. Yeah.
I bring my kids to the bank with me, and I go with them to the bank to have the personal banking representative talk to them about their savings account, their checking account, explain to them about debt, helping them be informed about any student loans that they have and if there are any deferral opportunities while they're unemployed, and really encouraging them to do the research on that type of thing.
I
And
love
then
that.
coaching me. I think, I remember my dad coaching me on my young adult jobs when I was in high school and college and graduate school. And we would have conversations, and he helped me realize that while I was working as a hostess, I had limited earnings. But if I were promoted to a server, I made a lot more money. And then working in restaurants that served alcohol as well, I made even more money. And so that was a great job, and I know actually was just talking with some of my friends who have their kids working full-time in restaurants right now while they're looking for their career jobs.
Yeah. I agree. I do think having some type of working while you're trying to figure out your career job, there's a lot of jobs you can, and in my opinion, they should be working and earning money. And then, you can talk about what are those earnings going to be used for? So that could be part of the conversation of we'll help with this or we'll cover that. And then the expectation of, with your income, then you'll be either covering the remainder or these expenses. So
Yes, absolutely.
yeah. So I think, we are at the end of our time together. It always goes so quickly. Is there I guess, kind of to wrap this up, either do you want to highlight a couple key points or I think that might be kind of a good, like if you find yourself in this situation, again, for our listeners, you are not alone. What are some ways you can have a productive conversation that really gets everyone where they want to be, right? Because I do think most kids want to be independent, want to be out of the house and kind of doing their next thing. So maybe a couple of
Yeah.
tips on how to start that conversation.
I think the whole conversation needs to be rooted in love and recognize that your relationship with your kid is sacred and so important, and that this is a rich opportunity to teach them about financial literacy and financial responsibility. It's also an opportunity to shift your boundaries in your relationship so that they are becoming more and more responsible for themselves financially, emotionally, and otherwise. And so I think starting with both self compassion for your own personal situation, financially and emotionally, and empathy for theirs, and
Okay.
maybe asking them, if you had a magic wand, what would your perfect scenario be? And also thinking through what would your ideal situation be, and using assertive communication to collaborate and compromise and come up with a plan together.
I love that. I love that. Well, thanks, Joyce. As always, a lot of good nuggets packed into a small period of time. I think it is interesting too, just to see. I think as finance people, we're more finite and black or white, yes or no. And so that's why I always enjoy talking with the mental health professionals, because with your perspective, it could go a myriad of ways. And sometimes being a little more like open, if you will, has the potential to yield the desired result. So thank you.
Love it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that was a great conversation. And Joyce, I speak as a parent who went through two children growing up, and both of them at one point coming back to live in the house with us for a brief period of time. But it was funny because the rules were, we didn't have to get really disciplined with it, to be honest with you. I mean, the rule up front was you're welcome to come back. You need to save your money. So we know you want to move out. We know you want to go. We know you don't want us policing when you come back home from going out and being out at night. You want that freedom. And we were very fortunate because they both came back. They used that time wisely and saved their money and moved out, thankfully, because that is what
Amen.
we raised them to do, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. You were terrific the first time around. You were just as good the second time around. And for listeners who maybe skipped or didn't see that episode or listen to that episode, I believe you said it was episode 87, right?
Yes, that's
great,
correct.
great, Nicole. Yeah, you should go back and check out episode 87 because it's a rich, terrific episode, and I'm not surprised. It's one of the most listened to episodes that Nicole has recorded. So, Nicole, for people who are listening to this and thinking this conversation resonated with them and kind of hit home, maybe they want to have a conversation with you or explore this idea a little bit further. How do they reach out to you?
Sure. Yeah. They can reach me at, they can either go to our website at myprivatevista.com, and on our homepage, there's a contact us button. So you can fill in your information, reference this episode, and either myself or one of my lovely colleagues will reach out. Or you can give us a call at 312-831-4370. And again, you can get connected with me or one of my colleagues.
Yeah, and for those of you who may be reaching out to a financial advisor is a first-time kind of thing for you, I want to encourage you to do that because that conversation doesn't cost you anything. It's free. It gives you an opportunity to explore the relationship and think, oh, maybe I do want to develop something with the folks at My Private Vista. This makes sense for me. So do it. The other thing I would encourage you to do is just hit the follow button. Become a subscriber to the podcast, because then when new episodes are dropped, you get an email and you can listen to that episode. You don't have to remember, where did I hear that or nothing. It's right there. It's in your inbox for you. So do that. Until next time, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. We know you've got a lot of things to do in your day and your time is important. I'm Bill Tucker. On behalf of Nicole and everybody at My Private Vista, we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Dollars and Cents Creating Your Fulfilled Life with Nicole Romito, sponsored by Private Vista. Visit our website at www.myprivatevista.com or give us a call at 312-831-4370. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Private Vista is a group comprised of investment professionals registered with Hightower Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Advisory services are offered through Hightower Advisors, LLC. This is not an offer to buy or sell securities. No investment process is free of risk, and there is no guarantee that the investment process or the investment opportunities referenced herein will be profitable. Past performance is neither indicative nor a guarantee of future results. The investment opportunities referenced herein may not be suitable for all investors. All data or other information referenced herein is from sources believed to be reliable. Any opinions, news, research, analyses, prices, or other data or information contained in this presentation is provided as general market commentary and does not constitute investment advice. Private Vista and Hightower Advisors, LLC, or any of its affiliates make no representations or warranties expressed or implied as to the accuracy or completeness of the information or for statements or errors or omissions, or results obtained from the use of this information. Private Vista and Hightower Advisors, LLC assume no liability for action made or taken in reliance on or relating in any way to this information. The information is provided as of the date referenced. Such data and other information are subject to changes without notice. This was created for informational purposes only. The opinions expressed herein are solely those of the authors and do not represent those of Hightower Advisors, LLC, or any of its affiliates.